Alrighty, we've got a 2011 Ducati Diavel. This one's actually got almost 100,000 Ks on it, so it's pretty cool that it gets used quite a bit. We're just going to go over the hub servicing, or requirement for hub servicing. As per the OEM manual and the scheduled maintenance for this bike and most Ducatis, and this also applies to all single-sided swing arm bikes where there's a hub involved. In this particular bike, its maintenance schedule is that it gets serviced every 24,000 kilometres. And in that service, the rear axle comes out, the hub itself comes out, and all the bearings are greased, taken out, greased, and everything's checked. Now, to be honest, with these hubs, they actually do see quite a bit of heat, and they have heat-resistant grease that needs to go into them. And realistically, every 24,000 Ks is probably a little bit too long. We recommend doing them every 12,000 Ks. The reason being for that, like manufacturers obviously, they want to keep servicing costs down when they sell a bike. So if they've got a new model, they advertise it's servicing. Some people who go to buy those models or buy those bikes will look into the servicing costs. So the lower the servicing costs, the better. However, we don't see it as bad as this particular one. But if the hub isn't serviced and the grease isn't renewed often enough, what will happen, and in this particular case what had happened, is the inner race of the bearing was actually completely seized onto the rear axle. And they're a really nice tight fit. They do have to be greased. And what happens over time is that grease gets too hot, eventually it evaporates into nothing, and those parts can become seized together. These ones were, and the reason that we actually have this out at the moment is because on this particular service, this bike, the rear disc needed to be replaced, so this axle has to come out of the hub, and it was so seized. Joey's already given this guy a little bit of a clean-up, but this inner race of the bearing was so seized on there, rather than the shaft slide out from the inner race of the bearing, which it should, to get it out, it needed that much force that it's actually destroyed the bearing itself. So it's pulled the inner race out of the bearing, and that can tell you how welded this inner race was to the shaft. Now the problem with this is not all hubs are rebuildable, so this one has to be a full replacement, and that's a lot more expensive than servicing it every 12,000 kilometres. Look, if you were to do by the manual 24,000 kilometres and your bike doesn't see heaps of rain and stuff like that, it's probably fine, as long as it's being done. But all too often we see hubs that aren't getting serviced often enough, and it really is important to do that. It's a big part of the drivetrain, especially you've got a cool bike like this. You know, sometimes it's seeing speed. There's a lot going on there. There are a really big rear wheel, rear tyre, a lot of energy going through the whole drive chain, so servicing your hub is massively important. If you have a bike with a hub, just make sure that you're staying on top of the hub servicing. But as I said, like we're of the view that doing it every 12,000 Ks doesn't hurt, and it's better than doing it every 24,000 Ks. Not only avoid situations like this where we've got to, the hub's got to be destroyed to actually get the axle out, and the axle needed to come out for the rear disc change. But if it's that bad, then the bike's obviously not running as well. There'll be a little bit of drivetrain noise. You want to get reduce that friction as well. So, just an example, we do see it a little bit. This one was a bit extreme, but have your hub serviced.